Hey, good morning, everybody. I moved the time back a little bit because I know some of you were up late with lunar eclipse. I did not get to see it. I can't stay up that late. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night, but apparently there was a lunar eclipse last night. Did you guys catch it? So yesterday was a crazy re-upload. That was from a year ago when we basically predicted that IVF and Trump would be a thing. Many of you will remember that decode. It was from the TV series American Horror Stories. Here's a clip here. And we noticed that this woman here that played the actress who literally gave birth to a demon spawn through IVF, she was in this TV series with Kim Kardashian. And that we also realized that she looked a lot like Ivanka Trump. And then later we found out that the American Horror Story writers also made the connection, and they said that this character was modeled after Ivanka. So we were right about that too. And here we are in 2025, a year later, after that re-upload, and Trump has pledged to make IVF free for women by subsidizing it through an executive order. To what end is the question? To what end? Well, if we're to believe American Horror Story, it provides a pretty frightening scenario. Now, if you're not familiar with in vitro fertilization, let's go into this article here. What Trump's IVF executive order means for access to fertility assistance for Americans. One of the executive orders Trump signed this past week seeks policy recommendations to expand access to in vitro fertilization. According to a 2024 survey, 1 in 10 women of reproductive age say they received fertility assistance, including IVF, but insurance coverage for the procedure is limited. So, what did Trump want to do? Well, he is offering to pay for this. Now, this is a little bit weird, isn't it? On its face, it sounds like maybe a good thing to help more women have children. But here's the problem. Trump is now the IV president. In vitro, intravenous, we've got vaccines, and now we have in vitro. And it can't be a mistake that both Ivana and Ivanka's names start with IV. It's almost as if his entire life is reflecting the future that nobody could have known yet, right? And here is Ivanka, represented in this character, essentially receiving in vitro fertilization and giving birth to a demon spawn in the series. Now, the season of American Horror Story that this appears in, it's called Delicate, is the name of the season. American Horror Story is pretty much advanced decoding. I would not recommend this series for the layman, because I believe that this series has the potential to possess people and attach spirits to you. That's how dark the series is. But as a frontline warrior for truth, I put on my armor and I decoded the series for you and showed you what was going to happen before it happened. And now here we are, and we have government subsidized IVF. Now, when I originally did this decode, it sounded super crazy. It's like, that's too far of a stretch. But now it's making perfect sense, isn't it? What this means is that the seed of the woman will now be in the hands of the serpent at unprecedented levels in human history. This is the enmity mentioned in the book of Genesis between the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. They can do whatever they want with the woman's seed. It's in their possession now, or will be, as more and more women use this benefit to try to become pregnant. You also have to ask yourself, why are women having a tougher time becoming pregnant? It can't be a mistake. The timing of something else that they got injected with and the subsequent admission by the controllers that it could have had some kind of effect on women. You guys know what I'm talking about. And now they're providing the cure because that's what Trump does. That's what Apollo does. They provide the disease and provide the cure. So now the cure is, oh, we'll give you free IVF. And guess what? Guess what that's going to do? It's putting the woman's seed in the hands of the serpent. Now, we all remember the TV episode of the TV series Evil that we did. We did a decode on that. And in that series, one of the main themes is that they used this woman's seed without her knowledge. She went to an in vitro fertilization clinic. You see the theme here, you guys? This isn't an accident. IVF is now has now shown up in 2 different TV series before Trump made this announcement. It's a thing. And in each instance, it's evil that is spawned out of the woman's seed. I hope you're awake to this. I hope you're seeing it because we covered all of this before it happened. Remember what happened to the woman in the TV series Evil? Let's go into the chat. What did they do with her seed without her knowledge? All right, I'm in the chat, you guys. Now, here's my personal opinion. Now, I'm not in a woman's shoes who cannot become pregnant. So I'm not going to claim moral authority over people who choose IVF. But in my opinion, God is the determining factor about if a woman can become pregnant or not. And God knows everything. And if we try to push those boundaries, and again, this is my personal opinion, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to those who have not been able to become pregnant. But if that is happening, only God can truly provide life. He did it in the Bible with barren women, didn't he? So when you push the boundaries, we can open ourselves up to other things. Not to mention, the LGBT community is using IVF and these things to create unnatural births, aren't they? So what happened in the TV series Evil to one of the researchers? Well, she was like an investigator for the Catholic Church. Remember the teams? There was the priest. She was a psychologist. And then there was like the technician. And she finds out later that they had used her seed to spawn the Antichrist. Let's get into the rest of today's show, you guys. Tesla is in a Trump slump, we're going to call it. A Trump slump. What's going on? Well, Trump has essentially turned the White House into a showroom for Teslas. Trump turns the White House lawn into a Tesla showroom. Let's take a look at this. Trump is now a car salesman. Wow. Now, what is going on here? Why is Trump turning into a creepy car salesman for Tesla?
Wow.
Wait a minute.
This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer.
Hello, President Trump. Are you looking to buy or lease today?
Well, I'm going to buy. And I'm going to buy because, number one, it's a great product, as good as it gets. And number
Wait a minute. So, okay. Let me help you understand what's going on here. Everybody and their mother thought that it was the end for electric vehicles. Why? Because of Trump's rhetoric. He just got done canceling Biden's order for electric vehicles. Then they doubled back and they tried to do Teslas instead. But then there was an uproar. People like, you can't have more electric vehicles with your buddy. supplying the federal government with electric cars. So they backtracked on that, didn't they? But now they're doubling back on that, with Trump essentially selling cars for Elon Musk.
Because this man has devoted his energy and his life to doing this, and I think he's been treated very unfairly by a very small group of people.
This is bulletproof.
I mean, look, in terms of imagination, I think I have a great imagination. Who else but this guy would design this, and everybody on the road is looking at it? It's amazing, actually. As soon as I saw it, I said, that is the coolest design. It's. Do you agree with that, Brian? I mean,
I do.
It's amazing.
It's very cool. Yeah.
You got to give him credit.
We want the future to look like the future, and it's kind of what kind of truck would Blade Runner drive? That was the design idea.
Whoa, Blade Runner. Now, the plot thickens. I did not see this yet. Blade Runner was all about androids, transhumanism. Androids that looked human, which is exactly what Elon Musk is working on.
It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Hey, Elon, are you planning to remain?
Now, here's what happened. The market is responding to Trump before this, didn't they? They were responding to Trump because Trump was like, we're going to make America great again. We're going to manufacture cars here. Gasoline cars, beautiful gasoline cars, right? And everybody thought that this is what was going to happen. And there were all these gas car manufacturing plants that were coming back to America. And so people ditched the electric cars, right? Because they were just over it. Because real people like you and me understand we don't have the luxury of having a novelty vehicle that's only reliable part of the time. We're not rich like these people where they get to drive these things as toys on their golf courses and their resorts. You know, it's easy in those circumstances because you can just plug the thing in and you're just driving it around like Disneyland. But for all the rest of us, they make absolutely no sense. With electricity costs going through the roof and these things. So here we are, and the market responded to this and pulled the plug on Tesla. This is why Tesla's stock fell. But now Trump is doubling back and telling people, oh yeah, believe in electric vehicles again. Never forget, these are electric cars. It doesn't matter that Elon Musk's stamp is on it, right? It's branding. So we're just getting a different version of a bigger and better electric car, aren't we? But it's all the same. This is why people have to snap out of this paradigm that we're stuck in. So this is why I named the show Teslump, because it's a Tesla Trump slump, essentially. So now we have creepy car salesmen as presidents. And now Trump is saying that if you are against Tesla, you are now considered a domestic terrorist. What? Violence against Tesla dealerships will be labeled domestic terrorism. And perpetrators will go through hell, says Trump on Tuesday to show support for electric car makers. Chief Elon Musk. Shares of the automaker closed nearly 4% higher on Tuesday, rebounding from the biggest one-day fall in 4.5 years the previous day. Domestic terrorist. Are you kidding me? Do you understand what this means? This means that anybody can be labeled a domestic terrorist, which means you can be black-bagged, you can be detained indefinitely, and you lose all of your natural freedoms and rights once this status is bestowed upon you. Wow. Now, I don't support any violence at all. Okay. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying here is Trump is skirting the line. Basically, you're either with him or against him. If you're against him, he's got all these little tools that he can launch against you to marginalize you and to steal all of your rights. So apparently there were some people that went to the Tesla plant. I think they were protesting, might have gotten violent. Let's read this. Let me tell you, you do it to Tesla and you do it to any company, we're going to catch you and you're going to go through hell. White House spokesman Harrison Field said ongoing and heinous acts of violence against Tesla by radical leftist activists are nothing short of domestic terror. About 350 demonstrators protested outside a Tesla electric vehicle dealership in Portland, Oregon, while 9 people were arrested during raucous demonstration outside of New York City dealership earlier in March. There have been media reports of vandalism on Tesla vehicles and showrooms that are under investigation. So there was some vandalism. So does vandalism, is that considered a domestic terrorist? I thought you needed to like actually plan on hurting somebody to be considered a domestic, like planning a literal attack, like with a bomb or something. But now, simple vandalism. Simple vandalism. Now, again, I don't support vandalism either, but this is insane, you guys. They can say anybody's a domestic terrorist now. Wow. So here's the story though with this. This isn't even about, these people aren't protesting because it's Elon Musk. Well, they might be. But there's this whole new thing now called greenwashing. And even hard leftists realize that electric car technology is way worse than oil-based and gasoline-based technology because of what you have to do to get these precious metals that go into these cars. Lithium and precious metals. Lithium mines all over the United States. And they call this greenwashing because they make you think that it's green energy, but it's really not. You guys, we're like in the twilight zone, aren't we? I can't even believe what's happening. Now, what else do we have in the headlines today? What are your guys' thoughts on all this? Battery cars are powered by electricity. Yeah, it's insane. Lithium batteries, and a lot of them. Vandalism equals assault on property. Yeah, I do not support vandalism. But you can't deem someone a domestic terrorist for, that's no different than what Biden did to the people at the crapper hole, right? There's no difference. They just put a different label on it. All those people did was spray paint some stuff and break some windows and go in. You can't label someone a domestic terrorist for that. That's insane. All right. So, what else is going on? Well, we all remember Girl Scout cookies. And what's going on with this? Well, they're now saying that there's heavy metals found in the Girl Scout cookies. This is crazy, you guys. New York woman has filed a proposed class action lawsuit against Girl Scouts of USA following claims that the organization's cookies contain heavy metals, pesticides, and other toxins. Lawsuit filed in a federal court claims that the Girl Scouts of the USA, along with cookie manufacturers Ferrero USA and Interbake Foods, are selling cookies containing heavy metals and toxins. There was a study commissioned by groups Moms Across America, GMO Science, that said that 100% of the cookies tested contained aluminum, arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury. And that 13 cookies were positive for high levels of glyphosate. Of course, that's Roundup. Notice how they don't call it Roundup anymore. The study wasn't published in a scientific journal, was not peer reviewed, and used a small sample size. You guys, essentially, our cereals, everything cereal has glyphosate in it. You can't even eat oatmeal anymore unless it specifically says not, made without Roundup or glyphosate. They're seeking millions in damages. Now I grew up on these cookies. When my kids were in school, it was a way to fundraise. And we always tried to support the Girl Scouts. I think my favorite flavors were the coconut macaroons, and there was another. Oh, the peanut butter ones were really good too. And the Thin Mints were really good. So now Girl Scouts has responded. They did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Now understand that this is intentional on some level. Okay. This comes from the top down. Poison is big business, isn't it? Because the sicker you feel, the more you go to the doctor. And when you feel sick, for some reason, we want junk food when we feel sick. And we all know this, but a lot of people are still asleep to this. They can't imagine the government being behind the poisoning of its own people for profit. They can't imagine that. Maybe it's too much for a lot of people to handle. But essentially, food is poison. Most of it anyways. Unless you grew it in your garden. And even then, the stuff coming out of the skies, a lot of it's poison, unfortunately. Now, let's get into this Greenland thing. I think I skipped that story. Let's go back to Greenland. If you hadn't heard, Greenland has magically elected a new president who's now completely open to Trump's advances. I mean, even the basic awake person realizes that the United States basically controls elections in other countries through the CIA to advance American interests. This is no secret. It's been going on for a very long time. We are still the bullies of the world who manipulate other people's countries for resources and power. Now, Greenland is low-hanging fruit. That was a slam dunk, and this is probably why Trump knew he could get Greenland. Very small population, mostly blue-collar workers, and the rest of the citizens are pretty much dependent on subsidies that they get from Denmark. And all it takes is one manipulated election and a puppet, and voila, Trump gets his Greenland. Let's read this article, you guys. Greenland's opposition wins election, dominated by independents and Trump. So all of a sudden, remember, just 2 weeks ago, we were reporting on this, and the people that were in control and power in Greenland a couple weeks ago said, no way, we don't want to be part of America. We want to be independent. Let us have our resources, and we could trade with the world on our own. And all of a sudden, there's a new leader. Greenland's center-right opposition has won a surprise general election victory. Of course, it's a surprise. In a vote dominated by independents and U.S. President Donald Trump's pledge to take over the semi-autonomous territory. The center-right Democratic Party, which favors a gradual approach to independence from Denmark, achieved around 30% of the vote. Near complete results show Greenland needs us to stand together in a time of great interest from outside, party leader Jens Frederick Nielsen told local media. There is a need for unity, so we will enter into negotiations with everyone. So, everything Trump touches turns to gold. How did he know? Well, if you were to look at this guy's background and history, I'm sure you would see that he's been manipulated from the beginning. And he magically won this election. This is why I don't believe in elections. All elections do is give you the illusion that there is fairness in the world. But really, these are all puppets. Puppets. All right, what else do I have here for you guys? Let me check in with you while I figure this out. Good morning, everybody. What a crazy world we live in. Remember the cereal growing up, Lucky Charms? That was like my favorite. Trump reminds you of the guy from Lucky Charms. Magically delicious. With his pot of gold. And everything he says it's going to happen always happens because he already knows. Oh my gosh. And then you've got the richest man of the world crying crocodile tears about his slumping Tesla stock, Elon Musk. We're supposed to believe that Tesla is his sacrificial child because he wanted to do the right thing. And it's not his fault that Tesla's, in the toilet when it comes to its stock. He's looking out for us, and he's willing to give up his Tesla stock so that America can be efficient. I don't believe any of it. So, as of today, as of March 2025, you can still get a $7,500 rebate to buy any electric car. Trump should have pulled that rebate day one. And this is what shows you he's not serious about doing anything about electric cars. I wouldn't be shocked if he still tried to purchase Teslas for the federal government. I wouldn't be shocked, you guys. They pulled it off the table, but that could come back to the table pretty soon here. Trump could immediately help gas vehicle sales go up. Immediately. He could increase demand for gas vehicles by simply pulling the $7,500 rebate off the table for electric vehicles. It's an unfair market advantage. But instead, we get the opposite. We get Trump, the Tesla car salesman. You can't make this up. So, let's get into a Tiger Woods update. Haven't heard his name in a while, have we? Tiger Woods is jumping on the Trump train. Well, not exactly. He's been dating Vanessa Trump, Donald Jr.'s ex-wife, for several months. Wow. Tiger Woods. We are living in the Twilight Zone, you guys. And a brand new plane crash. Let's take a look. American Airlines catches fire at Denver airport. Now, we all know about the Denver murals. And I'm not sure how much this has to do with it, but look at this footage, you guys. Whoa.
Flying. I've never seen anything like that.
The Boeing 737 was headed to Dallas, but was diverted shortly after leaving Colorado Springs when the crew reported engine vibrations.
We just have a high engine vibration, so we are cruising slower than normal for American 10,006.
The plane touching down safely in Denver, but the engine caught fire as the plane was taxiing.
Distance at Charlie 38, engine fire. 48 engine fire.
All 172 passengers and 6 crew members evacuated. 12 passengers had to be taken to the hospital.
This was a situation involving a mechanical malfunction of the engine in flight. Fortunately, the crew did exactly the right thing and got the airplane on the ground.
A series of recent crashes in Washington, Philadelphia, and Toronto and other close calls have rattled air travelers. Ticket sales are down. Delta's CEO recently saying a renewed fear of flying has caused a lot of shock. But experts remind us flying is still one of the safest ways to get anywhere.
This actually shows
One of the safest ways if you're not on one of these airplanes, right?
you how well the system does.
I mean, look, we all know that transportation is all about having control in your hands. There are good drivers and bad drivers. And yes, there are those instances where you're in a 2-lane highway and there's oncoming traffic and there's no way to get out of the way, but that's very, very rare. Typically, if you're a good driver, you can avoid crashing and being crashed into. It's called defensive driving. This used to be a thing. The problem with airplanes is you're at the mercy of a pilot and a mechanic and an air traffic controller. These are all things outside of your control. And there's nothing you can do when things go wrong. And that's the horror of flying. There's nothing you can do if things go wrong. And if your number's up, your number's up. Now, years ago, we had an idea that there would be like parachutes and ejection on some of these airplanes. But, that would be economically unfeasible to do that, right? It would cost so much money to build new planes that have an ejection roof and, parachutes under your seat. But my goodness, I mean, this is insane, you guys. Planes catching fire now. If they weren't close enough to the airport, they would have had to do an emergency landing somewhere else, like a water landing. I mean, all of the things that we've seen in movies and stuff like that. They got the people climbing on the wing here. I mean, this is like out of a movie. All the training that we used to laugh about, remember? Because nobody wanted to sit through the safety course on the plane, right? People would open their phones and just talking to each other. And I remember the airline stewardess would get all mad and be like, pay attention. Well, people are going to be paying attention now because look at these people standing out on the wing. Now, this is crazy. Like, this is a fire, you guys. Like, this whole thing could blow up right now. This plane could have literally blown up if there was fuel caught fire. There's a literal fire underneath these people. This doesn't even look real. Like, wouldn't they be hot? Look, there's a fire right there and the people are just standing on top of it. I don't know. For me, if I was these people, I would have jumped off this wing. I don't care if I broke my leg. I would not just be standing on top of a fire knowing that this thing could blow up. So what's happening here? Well, something is going on under this Trump presidency, and we all see it, and it's something very different than what happened over past administrations. Remember, the government is in control of our airline industry, isn't it? Ever since 9/11, TSA, basically it's been federalized. And they're basically cutting, I believe they're attempting to cut this basic service to Americans, which would contain us in 15-minute cities. If you can't fly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be driving around, especially if you have an electric vehicle. Do you see the play here? You got Trump in his 15-minute city, the Freedom City, pushing electric vehicles, Teslas, which would contain you in the 15-minute Freedom City. Now we have the attack on airlines, which isn't getting any better, which is scaring people from flying. It's like they're corralling us. Trump's then going to build a bunch of these nuclear power plants, probably very close to these quote unquote freedom cities. It'll run the data centers, Stargate AI. It'll run the Freedom City. It'll be a complete surveillance state. They'll use AI to run algorithms. There'll be med beds. There will be health and treatments through artificial intelligence to cure cancer. You guys, I'm seeing a picture emerging here, and it doesn't seem random. It does not seem random. And in case you hadn't heard, even the post office is cutting 10,000 jobs. If our post office wasn't slow enough, they are cutting 10,000 jobs. Now, the reason that they're saying that they're doing this is because the post office is no longer solvent, they're saying. And most of it is because they're paying out all this money in retirement. But last I checked, didn't taxpayer dollars pay for the post office? And the cost of postage was only a nominal fee. It was never meant to make the post office solvent. It was supposed to come from tax dollars. So where did these tax dollars go that were supposed to go to the post office? And why are we just hearing about this now? So DC, once again, basic services in outlying areas are going to be cut off. They're cutting 100,000 jobs from the post office. That means people in rural areas may not get mail anymore. Another thing corralling people into the freedom cities. There is a war on the rural people happening in plain sight. I hope you're understanding this, because to me, it's as clear as day. Now, what else is going on? Well, here's our last story today. Good morning, everybody. Show me the papers is happening now for any Hispanic person that doesn't have your papers. You can be deported now without a hearing under this Trump Act that he's going to invoke. This was from World War II, a wartime act. He's going to invoke this. And what this means is there will be no immigration hearing. If you don't have your papers, you can be deported. And why do I say every Hispanic person? Because people will be profiled. If you're suspected of not being here legally, maybe you've got an accent, or maybe somebody told on you, you could be deported. Now, I never thought it would get to this point, but I kind of did. Because this will be us next. Show me easy papers. This is what's happening, you guys. Now, I grew up around a lot of Hispanic people, as you know. Many of them were first-generation immigrants, or from parents who were first-generation immigrants. And a lot of these people, well, a handful of them were permanent residents who had either lost their green card or had it stolen. This is actually a real thing, you guys, because identities are valuable in the immigration world. And for some of you that know immigrants, you know that what I'm saying is true. There's this gray area. So what happens is there are a lot of permanent residents in America, which means you're here legally, right? Forever. It's called a permanent resident. It's a green card. What happens is illegals in circles close to the legal permanent resident people will steal these people's green cards and thus steal their identity because it's valuable. And then they assume the identity of the person that they've stolen the card from. And that will open doors for them to get jobs, to get loans, and to stay here probably forever. Because here's what happens. There's this weird loophole. If your green card gets stolen, and let's say you don't have proof of you being born here, obviously, you cannot get a copy of your green card unless you provide additional methods of proof. It's also a huge hassle. You have to go down to an immigration office down near the border. And I know that because this happened to somebody that I know. I'm not going to say who, and then you're exploited at the immigration office. Our immigration office is corrupt. They exploit women. They basically ask for favors in order to get the papers that you're asking for. I've heard of this happening. Women go down there and they're accosted and asked for sexual favors in order to get the green card, copy of their green card. It's insane, you guys. Because a lot of these people do not have a secondary form of ID because whatever the country they came from, they lost it. Right? Or it's been taken because these people are stealing each other's IDs. This is what's happening. They might have an American driver's license, but that's not going to get you a copy of your green card. So they go down to the immigration office, they beg for a copy, and then they're exploited by the immigration system, who basically preys on their desperation. It's the American dream. We do the same thing to people who work in the fields. We're exploiting them. This is why they keep allowing it to happen. Now, some of these people in the past who have lost their green cards, even though they're here legally, they don't have a copy of the card. They have found a way to carve out an existence in America. I've seen them get mortgage loans, have real jobs, but then other doors are closed to them. Like you can't get financial aid. You have to prove that you're a citizen most of the time. So under Trump's invocation of this World War II era act, people who have lost their ID, they get no trial and they can be deported. Now, of course, people who lost their green cards and couldn't get a copy, they don't deserve to be deported. But the larger concern here is the flexing of power. That reminds me of Yahtzee, Germany, and a throwback to what we did to the Japanese during World War II. It's happening all over again, and the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. This is one prime example. It's coming back around full circle. Now, if you're not a Hispanic person, you probably don't have anything to worry about. But again, a lot of these people have had their identity stolen, and there's no way to prove it, so that means they're going to get deported. Now, another theme that I see here is the destruction of the economy to build a new one, right? And a lot of people are on board with accepting that the economy might get way worse before it gets better. When in history have we accepted that? That's some strong MAGA magic, isn't it? How does that fit into immigration? Well, migrants have harvested our food, and now they're on the run. Now, in the beginning, and I still feel this way, I'm willing to pay a bit more for my produce to fix the immigration problem. I feel like the strain on the system and jobs and all that stuff, to pay a little bit more, to pay $30 for my produce instead of $20, I was willing to make that sacrifice. But now, with the tariff threat, this is going far beyond just our produce prices going up, isn't it? Everything is going up. And Trump even said, hey, with inflation, nothing ever goes back down again. All we can do is stabilize it and stop it from going up further. So once everything goes up, this is going to be our life now, you guys. So instead of middle America paying like 20% of their income in food and services and products, we could be paying as high as half of our income. Something to think about, you guys. Something to think about. So that's the State of the Union. A lot has happened over the last couple of days, hasn't it? I'm back in the chat, you guys. Crazy times. Yeah, the produce doesn't even taste good anymore. There's going to be a rude awakening, isn't there? When everything goes up, middle class and lower middle class are in for it. People just accept this. They're so happy that Trump won. Oh, it doesn't matter. He's going to fix everything. Just give it some time. Wow. Gold hits $3,000. Inflation is going higher for sure. Okay. All right, you guys, I'm going to pop off of here. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for showing up, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Actually Sunday. See you guys on Sunday. Much love.